Okay, thank you. We are going to go ahead and get started with our speaker, and I would like to introduce, and I just lost my bio here, so I'm going to have to wing it. I don't know where it went. That's frustrating. Well, we have Robin Barnhart here, and she comes to us from Dallas this morning. So she made the long trek up here just to talk to us about the Asylum Advantage. And she was with the Homeland Security, and so that gives her the background she needs to tell us everything we need to know about how to decipher people's body language, especially when applying it to our business. So let's go ahead and give a warm welcome to Robin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I have heard so many of you say that you're looking forward to this topic in particular, and I'm glad that you're aware of it. Body language matters, and I think we can forget day to day how much it impacts. I have a friend who, they were getting ready to go to Disneyland, and she had all the preparations in order. She had the plane reservations, she had the hotel that they were going to stay at reserved, and literally at the last minute, her son came in and asked her if they could go to Disney World instead. So from California all the way to Florida. This was literally just within a couple of days. Who would have changed that? Anyone? Well, she did. I think she must have wanted to go there more. I don't know what it was, but she was able to accomplish that. Well, when they got to the airport, she saw some individuals there that had some really unusual behaviors. Now, she didn't say anything about it. Her husband was checking in the luggage or something, and they just, they're excited about their trip. They went and sat down. Later, she learned that her husband, who was a police officer, also noticed these individuals, and he didn't say anything either. Well, when they got in the airplane, they began to notice that the flight attendants were behaving in a really unusual way. They weren't letting them out of their seats. They were on their cell phones. We know we're not supposed to be on our cell phones. And when they landed in Orlando now instead of California, they learned that the first plane that they would have been on from Boston to LA, American Airlines Flight 44, was the first plane into the Twin Towers. Those individuals that they saw were the men that flew that plane into the towers. Oh my goodness. What was it that these men were saying without words that gave away their true intent? Well, that's kind of a somber way to start something, to show you how much we are impacted by body language. And what happens is that so often we ignore the signs. Now, that was, 12 years ago? We've come a long way. Our program didn't even exist back then. The TSA uses behavior detection officers. I don't know if you know that, but that's who I trained, was the behavior detection officers. And there's not that many of them, but it is a tremendous science and research that has gone behind this. And looking at people, if you're just going to look for a high-risk individual, that's a very loose definition, it is like 587 times more accurate than just randomly screening someone. That's not percent, that's 587 times. That's like 58,000% more accurate by looking at body language. So, with that, let's get to more fun stuff. There we go. When you see someone for the first time, instantaneously they tell you something about themselves. Now, I'm going to show you a picture, and I'm only going to leave it up here for a few seconds. And I want you, so everybody can look it up here so they can get that first impression. I'll wait till Emily can look too. What is the first word that comes to your mind when you saw that individual? Anyone?
Funny.
Wacky. Funny. Wacky? Goofy? Goofy? I've heard goofy a lot. I think that's the #1 word. Well, what is the feeling that you got looking at that individual?
Strange.
Strange?
Made me smile.
Made you smile? Yeah, so there's a happiness, yeah. And I think he is. He has a smile on his face. So you have an emotional response. We can think of things that impact us when we see someone, but it also makes us feel a certain way when we see people that first time. Well, the same thing is true for you. What are you saying when someone sees you for that first time? You are also giving them an instantaneous emotion or feeling about you for that first time. Now, this is something, before I get to, see, I've tantalized you now, but now I'm going to get a commitment from you. I have found that I go and do these presentations, and remember, it's a very brief amount of time that I can give you just a little bit. Just our training for the DHS was 2 weeks. That's just the classroom training. Then you have to have the OJT and going out there and learning. So what I can give you in less than an hour is so small. And I literally get paranoid. I just know someone's going to go home and they are going to look at their sweetie or their kids and they're going to say, oh yeah, you're lying. And then I'm going to cause all kinds of discourses that come through. And I want you to know that you're not going to hear something today that's going to equip you to be able to go out and start assuming that. So will you agree with me by applause? Broken marriages or upset kids and family relationships on my conscience here. All right, so I'm going to be talking about first impressions, and we can control that someone. And then in a man's world, I start to say unfortunately, it's not unfortunate, but the reality is that men are often still in more hierarchy or top level positions, or even in our own, as business owners, we're interacting with men, and we need to understand how they respond to things. So with first impressions, again, how you make someone feel is more important than what you say. And we have a control of a lot of that. So when you're meeting someone for the first time, you want them to feel good. Did you know that before you meet them, you can start creating that it in yourself? Has anybody heard of that, the it factor? They just got it. There's something about them they've got stick. I don't know, there used to be something they'd say about actresses and actors that when they walked in the room that they just had that charisma or something. Well, you can develop this in yourself. You can actually alter the impression that you give to people. Now, you see this woman here, and she is literally just making herself excited. She's stretching herself out. She's smiling. Did you know that she is literally changing the dynamics and the chemistry in her mind? Did you know that you can do that? You can control what people perceive from you by changing your own mental attitude. And a lot of that comes from how you start, if you start jumping and down and dancing, doing things that change that, they can document, hook you up to wires and see that you are changing your own mental chemistry. Now, everybody has, you wrote the little things on your table. I didn't even look to see what was on the back.
There's a place on the bottom, and then you can use the back for notes.
Okay. Well, what I want you to do is, half of you draw a smiley face. Every other one. Here, let's go. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1,
2, 1, 2, 1, 2,
1, 2, 1, 2.
1, 2, 1.
Are you going to do it with us too? The ones draw a smiley face, just on the back, a little round circle with a big smiley face on it. And the twos draw a sad face, the opposite, the frowny face. So the smiley face with the upside down curve. And you make it so the person can see it. Try to make it pretty bold. So now, the ones, I want you to partner up with the two. And what I want you to do is everybody stand up for a second. And hold your smiley faces or your frowny faces with you. Now keep them down at your sides so everybody's not looking at the wrong one at the wrong time. Now, the ones with your twos. The ones right now, hold your arm straight out.
The ones.
The ones. And what I want you to do we have an extra? Here, you can come up here. Or, you can do that with her. That'll be great. Hold your arm straight out. Okay. Thank you. I be able to see any arms out. This was a test. All right, and the ones, you're holding that out, and I want you to look at the face that you've drawn. That's the smiley face, is it? You be looking at it. And twos, I want you to go up, hold that arm as hard as you can, and I want the two to go at the elbow area and push down on it. Try to push down. You're looking at that smiley face. Try to push down.
It's harder.
Oh, I'm pushing you.
Honestly, you can strong arm, no, you can. But there should, you can see that there's resistance. Now, I want you to turn and show them the frowny face, and stick your arms out again, and you press on their arm again.
She let go.
That's a funny frowny face.
Really, it was a lot easier.
Was it easier to push down?
It's weird. Okay, tell me, she's going to push it on my arm again, right?
Yes.
Okay.
While you're looking at the frowny
Looking
face.
at the frowny face.
And it should be easier to go down.
It wasn't with me.
That's because they're persistent. Spoiled.
All right, go ahead and sit down. Now, this is the first time I've done this. What I'm showing you with that, and for most of you, and I know in a random, this is the first time I've done it, so it was a little more chaotic. And I told Emily this morning I was going to try it for the first time. My husband, who I don't tend to believe in woo-woo stuff, but I research all the time. And I was looking at some things where they were doing tests, and this was one of them where looking at a smiley face, but also saying something positive, even if or negative. So if I said, I love to speak in front of a group, and then they try to press down on my arm, it should be pretty firm. I mean, obviously, my husband's much stronger than I am. He could push me down pretty easy. But if I said, I'm nervous to get in front of a group, even though that's a lie, because I really am not nervous typically to get in front of a group, it was easier. Now, I thought, okay, this is just hard. Maybe in your mind you're doing it. So I turned it around on my husband, who's much stronger. And I showed him the smiley face and the frowny face, and I could push him down. I mean, and he's much harder. I had to do the two hands, but it broke. And we did it with several things, saying a positive comment, and ultimately even just saying, my name is Robin, which is true, or my name is Ann, which is not true. It would give away easier. Or in your own mind, not telling him what I was thinking a positive versus a negative thought. So all of this to say, literally, before we leave, how we start presenting ourselves and thinking in our own minds is going to determine the impact you have on others. Isn't that good? Mm-hmm. You have control of this. So when you go out and you say, I am going to make a great presentation today. I am going to be confident, or I am confident in my ability to present this product or tell about my services or to engage in this meeting. It is going to change your ability. Now, all of us know with times, repetition, practice. You're a rower. I used to be. I've got pinched nerves in my back, and I haven't been able to play in 3 years. I was an pro certified racquetball instructor, played women's open and racquetball. It took practice. I didn't just do that. I'd get in and just drill, hitting those forehands and that backhand. With time, it gets better. Even this, the more you start thinking positive thoughts or determining, you know, I have a good friend, and she is a depressed person all the time. She's always surrounded by bad news. And I'll ask her, you know, you want to go, oh, I can't today, I just can't make it. And I've been saying to her, you're right, as long as you say I can't, you won't. We determine the outcome by what we say and what we do. And this is before we walked out the door. Now, this is my favorite picture in the whole presentation. Oh, it's kind of light in here, so you can't see it real well. Can y'all see that? Yeah. That is my granddaughter. Do you see the superwoman there? Now, what do you suppose she did as soon as she put that stick down?
Ran to you for.
Just took off running. That's right. She's this bundle of energy because she has keyed up herself and just changed the dynamics and the chemistry. She is feeling victorious in that. Whoop. I had you she just make sure. Wonder Woman. What do you think why she looks like Wonder Woman, doesn't she? This is something, and we see it with all our superheroes. They take up more space. They stand confident. You see her wide stance. You see her hands on her hips. She is changing, even if she didn't intend to. She changed the dynamics as an actress of her very being so that she could present that part well, just by standing in that pose. Now, there's a video, and it's not new with her, but she certainly has done some great research. Has anyone seen the Amy Cuddy TED Talk? I highly recommend you go online and just put in Amy Cuddy, I think it's C-U-D-Y, on TED. TED Talks will pull up a gazillion different ones. But she talks about power poses, and in fact, I think she has a Wonder Woman picture up there too. Listen to what she's saying. It is incredible. And how this can impact you. Now, when we go out often, for interviews or sometimes waiting for meetings or we're waiting for a client, often we're sitting kind of up in a small position. We're hunched over or we're reading notes and we're sitting looking and our head is down. What do you think we're doing with the brain chemistry right here? You're getting the absolute opposite effect. It's like looking at that frowny face rather than standing and doing the power poses. So if you need to, you go back in the bathroom and you stand in the stall and go, yeah, I've got it. This is where you want to start making that impression before you've met the people that you're going to be talking to. In the car, you can be singing songs, you can be reciting. This is where you can be doing your own talk. I am going to have a great presentation. My comments are going to be well thought out. My mind is going to slow down so that I can see what is being said and respond as I need to. Whatever it is that you need to be saying, this is the place to do it. And of course, just doing those little happy jigs or anything that you need to physically change that it about you. Now, anyone that thinks that appearance doesn't matter? Anyone? Well, we all like to have our own individuality, don't we? And I'm all for individuality. But when we're going to be meeting with people that we want to be making an impression on, we have to think about the impression that they're going to be seeing from us. It's like seeing that goofy kid on that first picture. There's an impression, that first impact, and it's visual. Impressions matter. Now, there's a story, and I read this a decade ago. If I could find who it was about, I would give credit to it, but I've tried to find it and can't. It's a writer, and she had a boss, the editor, who happened to be male, and she knew that he was very influenced by the appearance of people when they walked in, and that he didn't look at credentials or anything. He just made a decision. And she was telling him that. He says, no, absolutely not. I look to see if they're the best qualified, and if they fit that situation, then they're going to be the one that gets in there. Well, there was a job opening coming up in the newspaper, and she had a friend that had a beard. She asked him if he would go apply for this job with the beard and then without the beard. If the man happened to notice that they looked similar, just tell him they were cousins or something. So he went in. I don't remember if I have the pictures on there or not. Sometimes I do. He went in, and he was clean the first time. He had a nice sports shirt on and nice slacks, and gave him the same resume, I think. And then went in the second time wearing a suit, clean shaven, same resume. The man never even noticed the similarity between them. Well, he left. When she saw her boss the next time, he says, I really appreciate you sending those two guys in to me. He says, that first one was really good. He said, but let me tell you about the second guy. He was awesome, and he began to talk about how fabulous it was, this man was. When she told him that they were the same individual, he was blown away. He had no idea how much he was being impacted by that visual appearance that he was. Well, he's not the only one. The people that are seeing you are that same way. And so are you. We all are impacted by what we see. So we need to be aware of that. If you were applying for a job, That doesn't mean that you have piercings and all kinds of things. If you're going to go to a tattoo parlor, that's going to be appropriate in that. But if you're going into a corporation, you better go see what they look like and match that, and then try to make your statement later. But don't do it during something that matters. Be aware of how you're impacting people. Now, these are just, I put these in here. I don't know if they're a benefit for you as much, but this is just talking about professional appearance. You know that TV dictates a lot about how we think we should look today. Well, these all look pretty professional. There's one there, and I won't even point out which one it is. You can probably look and figure it out yourself, that I think I would not wear as much, but even then, she's not bad. And I just gave away half that, didn't I?
Yeah.
This is a modern one that said the new professional. Well, this woman, she looks fabulous. I wish I looked like her. But I guarantee you, I would not go into most meetings wearing something that's that low cut.
No.
And I'm saying this more, this is primarily women. Well, in fact, it's all women in here. Sometimes even in women's group, I have men. Men, in fact, there's a really good book. Let me think what it's called. I'll think of it in a minute because I don't want to spend my time there. Ask me when we're done. But this woman, she and her husband were shopping, and they had their 4-year-old little boy with them. And as they're walking down the mall and stuff, all of a sudden they noticed that the little boy had lagged behind, and he was standing and looking in Victoria's Secret window. And the woman is there. Of course, you can imagine what in the Victoria's Secret window that she's wearing, and he's just staring at her. Well, the dad goes back and he says, "What are you doing?" And the little boy says, "I'm looking at her." And he says, "Oh, well, what do you think of that?" And he said, "She makes my tummy tickle."
How old is he?
4.
4.
There is a natural response that men have that is just part of their chemistry. And even if they could intellectually understand that you look fabulous, they're going to be impacted and think differently. If we want to impress them that way, that's fine. But if you're trying to have a professional appearance and want them to take you concretely, this is my suggestion. I recommend that you think about the things that they may be automatically thinking, even if they don't consciously know it. They may be impacted, and they may have discredited you. And I'll get more into that in a little bit. Now, do you think that these young ladies who look fabulous are the managers or the file keepers or the secretaries or receptionists? Which do you more likely think they are?
Secretaries are fine.
That's right. And it's not because there's anything wrong with them, but there's a way, a standard that we tend to look at. It may be someday this is going to be different. It may be how every CEO, hopefully if we all become the CEOs of our own corporations, we can change how things look. But for now, even we look at something and come to conclusions. Now, these two women, I think, are much more professional looking, and we would probably assume that they are more likely management. Now, this I loved. I think they both look very similar. The black, she looks fabulous, he looks fabulous. They did something in this picture that just irritated the daylights out of me. Do you know what it is?
She's got her hand on her hip.
Yeah, she's still making her look like the girl. I mean, she's got her leg is crossed and put over. She's posing where he's standing with his broad shoulders back and everything. Again, even something that subtle changes the dynamics of how you look.
Even one more button being buttoned, more professional.
Well, I think she's got enough, I think.
Right.
I'm not sure. I don't think that she's showing any cleavage. But yes, if I was in that position, I might. But I wouldn't hold anything on her on that one. I think she looks good there. I just want her to be standing and looking confident like him. All right, that was all the appearance. First sight, you haven't actually been seen yet. These are all the things that you're preparing before you go into that situation. But now you're fixing to meet that person for the first time. What do you suppose the first thing that you want to be thinking about is? There's a clue up there.
Handshake.
The smile.
The smile, yes, and we'll come to the handshake, but yes, the smile that's on that palm there. A genuine smile will always show up in the eyes. Did you know that? Now we hear that, but often we don't really know how to change that. It is hard sometimes to fake a genuine smile. We can all place smiles on our face all day long and never be genuinely happy. We're just sitting there thinking about, but we've got this little smile on our face. Well, when we are truly delighted about something, what happens is there's muscles up in here in the cheeks, and it actually causes the wrinkling and the crinkling in the eyes, especially as we get older. Little kids, you won't notice it as much. You're going to see that. Well, how I make this happen in myself, both my girls are now living in Phoenix. Boo. And I miss them terribly. So you can imagine that if one of them walked into this room, I would be delighted. So I would see my babies and I'd be smiling and I'd be running over there and so excited to see them. Oh, there you are! And go hug them and kiss their cheeks. Well, think about someone that you would love to see and that impresses you in a different way, and just pretend that when you're meeting this person for that first time, you're thinking of that child and you go, oh, how good to see you, no, you don't want to overwhelm them. So do everything but but make that happiness. People, when they think, if you're responding to them that way, they more automatically respond to you that same way. People like people that like them. So if you lit up, like, I am so delighted to meet you, they will respond, they're going to like you automatically more because you responded that way to them. It's just natural. Again, they can hook up your brains. When someone sees you smile, even if they're not responding and they're in a grumpy mood, it lights up their brain. You're changing their chemistry in addition to changing your chemistry. That smile is very important. Again, kids are such a delightful way to see these raw emotions. This child has that smile that's showing up in her eyes. What else is this child doing? Making good what?
Eye contact.
Eye contact. That's the other thing that you want to be doing, is having really good eye contact. Now, you don't want to have the stare down. And I thought this baby was just so delightful, I couldn't resist that. But you want to have good eye contact. You want to have good eye contact that first time. Now, we don't want to be having that stare down and making it, you don't want to just stare and never let go. And, then they're kind of, make them break it first to see what's happening there. Good eye contact, and I've been surprised at how many people kind of struggle with this. Usually you're going to be looking for, 2 to 3 seconds, and you might glance down at their shoulder. I said glance away, I think, up there, didn't I? Glance away. I don't know how else to word it in one word there. But just look. You're not wanting to look, then that looks kind of odd itself. But look at the top of their head, look at their ear, look at their shoulder, and go back. Eye contact is very important in how we make people feel. That's something else that's going to be drawing them to us, especially when they are doing the talking. Can't you tell that when you're talking to someone and they're sitting there on their cell phone and they're doing, even if you were looking down, say you were making a point and you had to write something down, you can tell whether they're looking at you, can't you? You want to have good eye contact with them. It will more likely encourage them to have it with you. And that's a whole other topic about if they're not having real good eye contact with you. Could be a lot of insecurities in themselves, but you're the one trying to create this feeling, so you make sure your eye contact is good with them. Now, if you're talking for a while, obviously you're not going to be staring. There might be more going on, writing and things, but anytime you have the opportunity, especially if they are talking, you should be looking at them. First contact, remember, we have now looked at them, we've smiled at them, and kept that good eye contact, but we have not physically touched them in any way. So what's that first contact?
Handshake.
Handshake, that's right. That first handshake, we want it to be good. Remember, this is about how we make people feel. So this is the first time we're actually going to touch them, and feeling contact is going to be involved, so we want them to feel good, and we want this handshake to feel good. So when you meet someone for the first time, and this is where we can stand up again, one's with your twos here, let's just do that again. So I didn't realize we had a rotation here. All right, so what I want you to do, and wait till you hear all the instructions first, is when I say to, I want you to shake hands with the person, your one or your two, and I want you to hold it. Start shaking and hold it. I mean, just do like you might normally be doing. Introduce yourself, give your name, but don't drop that handshake. And I'm going to say freeze or stop. And then when I do, freeze. Don't turn the handshake over, don't start looking at it, just freeze right where we are, and then I'll give you further instructions. So are you ready?
Yes.
All right, start shaking.
How you doing? I'm doing great.
All right, freeze. Freeze. Now, what I want you to do is look at your hand exactly where it is. Remember, don't alter it. Look
No.
exactly how it is. And then look at your feet. And then go ahead and sit down. And we were having a discussion about feet earlier. So,
See those socks.
oh, can you lift that foot up for everybody to see? That is just too fabulous. Can you see this?
Those are wonderful.
Superman. Now that is Wonder Girl.
Superwoman.
Supergirl. Yeah. All right, with that handshake, a good handshake, and will you be my handshaker? And I meant 14 people, I'm sorry. And I was going to remember yours, I had to determine it. All right, a good handshake, you see, should be vertical. This puts you on the same level.
Can you turn around? We can, okay.
And I have it up in the picture, but I know it's easier to see this way. This, and by vertical, I mean it's vertical to the ground. And Ann's, she's got a great handshake, by the way. When she offers that, she offered it in a vertical manner that puts her on equal ground with me. And well, I'll get into that in a minute. The next one, and I saw someone over here doing it. If someone comes in and they shake your hand and they put themselves in the dominant position, they have offered their hand. I've come in and I've given mine with mine on top. I've put myself in the dominant position. Now, if you're a confident person, that may be okay. But if you're going in with somebody that you're trying to impress, this may not be what you want to do. Now, you look at presidents and things, politicians, how often they will do this. This or kind of the opposite, and I think I do have a picture of that. Oh, well, this is the way to overcome it. If somebody does that, take your other hand, Ann, and see how, if you want to overcome somebody giving that, you just take your other hand and say, Robin, how are you doing today? You see how gracious this is? But she just removed any dominance I might have thought that I had over her. She took control of that. And remember, now normally we wouldn't be holding hands for this long, but remember, this is about that touch, and she's also given me a little more touch. So it's about how you make someone feel. So that, if they do that, just that brief, and sometimes people do a two-handed shake. It's about how you make someone feel. So that can be a really good thing to do. But you want to be thoughtful or careful. Remember, you can't go out and make there's exceptions to everything. I should have said that first. Everything is going to have an exception. Consider your audience. Consider who you're doing it to. Consider whether they're male versus female or female versus female. We're going to respond differently. But if you want to put yourself or take away, you don't want them to think that they're the boss, that's a good, gracious way to do that. And there's the picture of that. Anybody have this handshake?
Oh.
How are you doing? Can y'all see this? Who likes this handshake? Who likes anyone?
No.
Now, I get it quite often, and I get them quite often in groups where I'm talking about it, and everybody says they don't like it. I've heard people say, well, I have arthritis in my hands. There may be reasons this is happening, and we understand that. But if you're trying to impress someone, that first time, you kind of want to give it up. I know we're also in a germaphobe society where I don't necessarily know where their hands have been. They may not have washed them when they were in that potty, If you are that concerned about it, and that can be a legitimate concern, if you can keep a little wet one in your pocket, and when you're done with that handshake, stick your hand in there discreetly and wipe it or something, but get over it for that handshake. You want to leave them feeling good about that handshake. And also, there's not really a picture to do that. Yeah, I didn't do it. There's not really a way to show the grip itself. Now, I like Dan's handshake. I have a strong handshake, don't I? She does too. And I don't know that that's as common with women as it is with men. Women also often have a slightly, that's a good grip, have a slightly softer grip. Your grip should either equal or slightly be stronger than the hand you're gripping. So if someone does take your hand and it's that little limp, have it slightly stronger. but you don't want it to be certainly any softer because those limp ones just don't feel good. So think about how you're making that person feel when we're doing that. Now, I know that there are men that are still really concerned about this. So if you get they're concerned, I've had more men ask me, well, what about sometimes you're supposed to wait till the female offers her hand before you take it? Just stick your hand out there. You be the one to initiate that handshake. This is about you making the other people feel good. And I tell the men to do that. You go ahead. Also, if someone does that little handshake like this, act like it's your fault. Say, I'm sorry, we just didn't get that right. Let me get that. And you take their hand and grip it correctly. And because again, it's about that impression that you're feeling. You're in control of that. All right, the feet. Feet are an amazing thing. We do not realize, I think maybe because they're so far from our brain, we forget that they are messengers all on their own. And our feet should be pointed completely at the person we are talking to. Now, I do that in here, and there is a caveat. I'm going to guess some of your feet weren't pointing at the other one fully. Well, you're all sitting in here. I had you get it for a few seconds. Your attention's probably more likely up here. So you're forgiven in this environment. But it's just such a great way to make you think about it. That if you're talking to someone and your feet should be pointing toward them. Their feet may not be fully pointing toward you, but you still want to make sure that yours are pointed toward them. Now again, there's just so much with this. In the male world, people are running all the time. Maybe you were just stopping for a minute and they chatted. You want your feet pointed toward them. If you're in a meeting, say you had a client that you were wanting to talk to, you're getting ready to leave or whatever, and their feet are there, and you see one of their feet begin to turn, they're getting ready to leave. That is the best clue you have to be the one that looks like you're right on top of it, and they won't even know it. But you say, you know, I appreciate you taking time with me today, and what can I do to reach out to you next time? You release them as soon as you see it begin to turn. If both of their feet turned, they have checked out. They just haven't figured out how to leave yet. So you want to be, again, on top of that and release them certainly before that. And I have I've got to be cognizant of the time. There was a friend, it's the National Speakers Association, NSA. He was a young man that had been there for the first time. And I knew that he was wanting to go to lunch afterwards with the speaker that was there that day. He's a real tall guy, and I was standing there talking to him afterwards. Well, as we're chatting for a minute, his feet are fully engaged, mine are fully engaged. Well, I saw his foot turn. I knew where he wanted to go. It was right toward that restaurant where they were going to be meeting down there. I kept talking. Pretty soon, both of his feet turned. I knew that he was really wanting to go. I did let him go, I released him. But it was just, again, a way of pointing out and seeing, and I was just testing in my own mine, I guess at that point, and verifying that thing. Feet are very telling in different situations. But again, remember, people are standing shoulder to shoulder. You're not obviously going to expect their feet to be turned toward you, so they may be slightly turned toward you. Also, I think I mentioned earlier that I have pinched nerves in my back. I will guarantee you that I forget about it when I'm up here. This is my catharsis or something. When I'm standing for any period of time, I will almost always go to one side. So we have to take it. We can't assume everything's an insult or they're not fully involved. There's other dynamics that impact these things. But when we're looking for business, these are good clues to what's happening there, and we should be aware of them. More for their benefit than for our benefit. Now this I did just for fun. I'm going to go through it real quick. I don't know if you can see the two young men over here. His feet are pointing, one is pointing down kind of toward him, and one's pointing completely that way. His is wrapped around the table toward him and pointing that way. This guy over here, he's just wide open, including both of them. Now, the next picture, and I took about 10 of them. You can see what I do in my spare time when I'm waiting. And I did. Their heads are in part of it. I try to keep their identity. I don't know who they are, but to keep their identity. That guy went up and went to the bathroom. You see where their feet went? Mm-hmm. They're now including that empty chair. Mm-hmm. Now, there were a couple of them I took, and they had maybe kind of released a little bit, but they did not include him until he got up and left. When he came back, now he's included. Until the one on the other far side there, he went to the bathroom, and now that guy's leg is wrapped back around that table. Until he comes back, and then they're all happy together again. Now, all that to say, I don't know, I so wanted to go talk to them. I am just guessing he is either their boss, or he's the new guy in the group. I'm not sure which, but they were obviously much more comfortable and familiar with each other than they were with him. And I thought that was just such a delightful thing, I couldn't resist telling him. All right, any questions about that before we go on? All right, in a man's world. Now, again, this isn't about right or wrong. It's not about men being better than women. It's not about women being better than men. I personally, and this is my own personal thoughts here, think we need to get over talking about how bad the other guys are or the other girls are and enjoy each other for the differences. And that's just individual to individual. But that being said, we can look at our brains and see men and women are different. Does anybody not know that men and women are different? That we think different? We are wired different. Now again, there's going to be exceptions to these things. There's going to be some women that think more like men. There's going to be some women that think more like males. Did I get that right? But it is still a definite difference on the whole between us. So we need to be aware of that. Now, for women, things that we can do when we get into this situation, certainly if we're trying to impress males, if you're in management, you're trying to move up, or maybe you're not in management, you're trying to get there. Things that, and I see you're writing, so if you want to write those down, I'll leave it for a second. And I'm going to be talking about these specifically, but that's just the notes. There are differences in the way men and women behave. Women typically they go from both sides of their brain. Did you know that? That we think on both our right and our left sides more often? Men more often think on one side than the other, and I'm going to assume that they think more on the left side of the brain because that's the more analytical side. And they don't cross over as easy between the two. Now there is, and this one I can remember the name, there's a book, Men Are Waffles and Women Are Spaghetti. Has anyone ever read that? It is another great book to read, and it talks about that men tend to think in boxes. They look at the football field, they look at the TV screen, they look at their newspaper, they look at their computer, and those all happen to be kind of squares, but also they're one task at a time. Now, some men think they're good multitaskers because they can jump from box to box very quickly, but they still are primarily looking box to box. They only can focus on that one task at a time, and my husband is the king of this. He is one thing. If I want to talk to him when the TV's going, he's not going to hear anything that's being said, or you've got DVR so you can pause it. When it wasn't, I may as well give it up until whatever it was over, because I was not going to have his attention until whatever he wanted to hear was done. But women, on the other hand, we can think about multiple things. That's why we can be on the telephone and stirring the dinner while it's cooking and talking to the kids and asking our friend, hey, do you see what's on the TV at the same time? Multiple things. Now, not one of those has our 100% attention. I don't want anyone to think that you're ever able to 100% give your attention to two different things. We can't. But we can just go and flow between these tasks at the same time in a way that men can't. That impacts how we are when we're in business situations. Now, and this sounds like a big jump, in talking about this was first on the list, one of the best things that we as women can do when we're trying to make ourselves appear confident or looking professional is to change our posture. Women inherently, we tend to want to be more feminine, and that's okay. There's places for that. It is not wrong. But especially if we're dealing with men, we want to have good, confident posture. One of the simplest things you can do, and I just did it deliberately, although it was very subtle. Anybody see what it was? I widen my stance. Now, I tend to have a pretty, I stand, that was my more natural way. I had actually done that earlier, put them closer together. Women often stand with their feet very close together. This is very small. It actually is taking up less space, and that small act makes you look more, I don't know what good words to use, but insignificant or inferior or not as strong.
Not as
Just,
confident.
yeah, just stand, I'm not talking about standing like, some of these cowboys and do and stuff. Just widen it to the width of your shoulders. Take up a little more space. Pull your shoulders back. A lot of times we stand very small and we're kind of hunched over. We also often kind of cross our hands in front of us. That's just this little protection barrier. We think it's just looking, sometimes we think it looks official, we're just kind of being professional and quiet here. Well, you think about what you're covering, that's a protection. When you have your arms open and at your side, you have left everything vulnerable and exposed. And this is true for men too. But especially with women, it gives you a feeling or a perception. People look at you and they feel like you are more confident. Again, remember there's exceptions and there's different situations. These are great things. Sports, and I think we know that, I played softball, I played racquetball, I was in that stance all the time in racquetball. And again, kids are such a great example of that. You just see him when he's out there playing soldier or mighty warrior or whatever he's playing, he's got that stance going. It's just an inbred thing, that positive, it's solid. It makes us look like we have more solidity and power. Now, anyone recognize who that is?
Princess Kate.
Who?
Princess Kate.
Yeah, Princess Kate Middleton. Now, I personally would hate to be in her position. You know she has paparazzi following her all the time. She has the queen telling her that her skirts need to be a little longer. Or that was the newest thing that I heard. She couldn't even have a baby without it being on national TV and having to show it. When I just literally put in demure, and she is what came up. She is considered the most demure female in England. But you look at her. Her stance is always small. Her hands are almost always protecting her in some way. Now, she's beautiful, she's fabulous, there's nothing wrong with what she's doing, but she is not carrying a